Good morning, students. For 6th sem, I am discussing the chapter Fuel Chemistry. In fuel chemistry, today we are discussing regarding review of energy sources, in that renewable and non-renewable energy resources, and then distinguish between the renewable and non-renewable resources, and then classification of fuels. So we are discussing today what are the renewable resources and what are non-renewable resources with their examples, and distinguish between the renewable and non-renewable resources, and then classification of the fuels, and then we are discussing their calorific values also. So now, what are renewable resources? The renewable resources are the resources. They are renewed or replenished by nature in a short span of time. Within a short span of time, you can renew or replenish by nature. Such type of resources are considered as the renewable resources. Example for them is solar energy, underground water, forest, and wildlife. These all are renewable resources. The resources which are renewed are replenished by nature in a short span of time. Such type of resources are called the renewable resources. And then, what are non-renewable resources? These resources may not be replenished by nature. They may not be replenished by nature, or they take very long geological time to be formed again. They take a very long time to formed again. Such a type of resources are called non-renewable resources. Example for them is fossil fuels, like they may be petroleum or coal. These are the examples for the non-renewable resources. Now, what are the distinguished properties between the renewable and non-renewable resources? As we know that what are the renewable resources? They are renewed or replenished by nature in a short span of time. We know the examples also. The forest, wildlife, underground water are the examples for the renewable resources. And these renewable resources is also called inexhaustible resources. And in case of non-renewable resource, we know that the resources may not be replenished by nature or take a very long geological time to be formed. Again, such a type of resources are called the non-renewable resources. Examples, we know that the fossil fuels like coal and petroleum. And one more important point here, in case of renewable resources, these are available continuously. The renewable resources are available continuously, like solar energy, water, forest, wildlife, and underground water. They are available continuously. But in case of non-renewable resources, what happens means these resources are exhausted after use. These resources are exhausted after continuous use. Examples, fossil fuels. If you are using continuously the fossil fuels, they may exhaust. And in case of renewable resources, they can be used again and again, as we know that they are available continuously. But in case of non-renewable resources, it cannot be used again and again, as it is limited. And then renewable resources are eco-friendly. We may call it as eco-friendly or environment friendly. as the amount of carbon emission is low. The amount of carbon emission is low in case of renewable energy resources, so they are considered as eco-friendly. But in case of non-renewable resources, it is not environment friendly. Non-renewable resources are not environment friendly as the amount of carbon emission is high. So these are the differences between the renewable and non-renewable energy resources. Classification of fuels. Before going to the classification, now we will discuss what is a fuel. Any source of heat energy is called as a fuel. You can consider any source of energy that is considered as a fuel. By definition, you can see a fuel may be defined as any fissionable material, chemical or reactant which produces energy in a form which can be used for producing the power. In this way, we can define the fuel. Now, how the classification of fuel done means, by their origin, the fuels may be classified into two categories. First one is primary fuels and second one is secondary derived fuels. And these primary fuels are the natural fuels which occur on the earth crust, and these may be a solid, liquid or gaseous. And solid natural fuels are wood, peat, lignite, coal and anthracite. And liquid natural fuels examples are crude oil and petroleum. And gaseous natural fuels are Mars gas and natural gas are the examples. Mars gas, methane, you know that. And secondary derived fuels are, these are artificial fuels. These are the artificial fuels which may be again a solid, liquid or gaseous fuels. Solid secondary fuels examples are coke, semi-coke and charcoal. Liquid secondary fuel are kerosene, petrol, fuel oil and LPG, liquid petroleum gas. And gaseous secondary fuel examples are producer gas, water gas and compressed butane also. These are the primary fuels and secondary derived fuels. Here in this you can see the chart also regarding the fuels, the primary fuels and secondary fuels with their examples I have given. Solid fuels examples, liquid fuels examples and gaseous fuels examples in this chart. Now, industrial fuels. All the industrial fuels may be classified into two groups. First one is power generating fuels and second one is process fuels. And where these power generating fuels are used, these are burned in power plants. These power generating fuels are burned in power plants for producing the energy. And process fuels are used in industrial furnaces and for producing the heat which is required in various industrial purposes. Where we are using these process fuels, these are used in the industrial furnaces for producing the heat which is required in various industrial processes. So there are two types of industrial fuels. One is power generating fuels and another one is process fuels. Now, what are solid fuels? The solid fuel consists of combustible organic material and incombustible or mineral part, and this incombustible or mineral part is called the ballast. So generally a solid fuel consists of combustible organic material and an incombustible or mineral part called the ballast. The organic part of fuel is having carbon, hydrogen and sulfur and may also include such elements of nitrogen and sulfur. So it contains basically a carbon, hydrogen and also sulfur and nitrogen. The incombustible or mineral part of fuel is having the moisture and minerals. The mineral part of a fuel comprises of carbonates, silicates, phosphates, sulfates, sulfides of iron, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, potassium and sodium. So basically a solid fuel consists of combustible organic part and incombustible mineral part called ballast. The combustible organic portion consists of an carbon, hydrogen, sulfur and nitrogen, whereas incombustible or mineral part of fuel is having the moisture and mineral. The mineral portion consists of carbonates, silicates, phosphates, sulfates, sulfides of iron, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, potassium and sodium. Now we will discuss regarding coal. Coal is the most important combustible solid fuel. It is formed by the combination of high temperature and high pressure on vegetable matter over geologically extended periods of time. What is this vegetable matter? It's a vegetable matter or trees and plants and consists of cellulose. Now what is the composition of coal? The coal is made up of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen and traces of sulfur, nitrogen and phosphorus. Now the applications of coal. Coal is one of the most valuable mineral product and it provides an employment to over 3 lakh persons. And coal is used for steam raising for metallurgical purposes and in brick kilns for cement manufacture and for gas manufacture and for domestic purposes also coal is being used. And coal products have also been used as starting materials for some industrial products including the man-made fiber and nylon. And coal is being used in railways also. So these are the applications of coal. So in today's class we have discussed regarding the renewable and non-renewable energy resources. What are the renewable and non-renewable energy resources? With examples we have discussed, and the classification of fuels, in that primary fuel and secondary fuels we have discussed, and then discussed regarding what is the composition of solid fuel, what the solid fuel comprises, and then coal and the applications of coal we have discussed in today's class. And in next class we will discuss the next portion. Thank you, students.